The Soviet Union crumbled in 1991. From its ruins, Ukraine emerged as an independent nation. This was a pivotal moment. For centuries, Ukraine had been tied to Russia, both geographically and culturally. With independence, Ukraine had the chance to forge its own path. However, the legacy of the Soviet Union cast a long shadow. Russia, under the leadership of Boris Yeltsin and later Vladimir Putin, found it difficult to accept Ukraine's newfound sovereignty. The two nations were deeply interconnected with shared economic ties and a complex history. The breakup had also left Ukraine with a substantial nuclear arsenal. To ensure global security, Ukraine agreed to relinquish these weapons. The Budapest Memorandum of 1994 was signed. In exchange, Russia, the United States and the United Kingdom pledged to respect Ukraine's territorial integrity. This agreement would later prove to be a crucial point of contention. As Ukraine charted its course, it increasingly looked towards the West. The European Union, with its promises of economic prosperity and democratic values, held a strong appeal. Similarly, joining NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was seen as a way to guarantee Ukraine's security against potential threats. Russia viewed these aspirations with suspicion and hostility. The expansion of NATO closer to Russia's borders was seen as a direct threat to its security and a betrayal of the post-Cold War order. Putin, in particular, saw Ukraine's westward leanings as an attempt to weaken Russia's influence in the region. The Kremlin began to use its economic and political leverage to pressure Ukraine. Trade disputes arose and Russia sought to undermine pro-Western political forces within Ukraine. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies and geopolitical ambitions. In 2004, Ukraine held a presidential election marred by allegations of widespread fraud. Viktor Yanukovych, a pro-Russian politician, was declared the winner. However, the results sparked mass protests across Ukraine, known as the Orange Revolution. These protests, fueled by allegations of electoral manipulation and a desire for closer ties with the West, forced the government to annul the election results. A new election was held, and Viktor Yushchenko, a pro-Western leader, emerged victorious. The Orange Revolution was a clear sign of Ukraine's desire for a democratic future and closer ties with Europe. Almost a decade later, in 2013, similar protests erupted. This time, they were triggered by President Viktor Yanukovych's decision to abandon an association agreement with the European Union in favor of closer ties with Russia. The Euromaidan protests, as they came to be known, drew hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians to the streets. These demonstrations were met with a brutal crackdown by the government, further inflaming tensions. In the aftermath of the Euromaidan protests and the subsequent removal of President Viktor Yanukovych from power, Russia moved swiftly to seize control of the Crimean Peninsula. In March 2014, Russian troops, without insignia, took control of key strategic locations in Crimea. A hastily organized referendum, widely condemned as illegitimate by the international community, was held, and Crimea was annexed by Russia. Simultaneously, pro-Russian separatists, backed by Russian forces and weaponry, launched an armed insurgency in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas region. This marked the beginning of a protracted war in Donbas, claiming thousands of lives and displacing millions more. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This act of aggression, condemned by the international community, marked a dramatic escalation of the conflict. The invasion shattered the fragile peace in Europe and plunged the world into a new era of uncertainty and geopolitical tension.